Hey GenderqueerChat, it's Monday, this is Matt, and this week's topic comes from one of our viewers named QueerPan, and the question is, how accepted do you feel by your local queer communities, especially if you're read as a straight man or woman? So this is a really interesting topic, and probably one that I would answer differently today than I may have a year or two. And that's only because, I guess, a year or two ago I was much more active in my local queer communities. I had a lot more to do with my queer friends, and went to a lot more sort of queer events and things like that. So I was a lot more out there, and that was probably at a time when I was really coming to terms and learning about my own queer identity, and it was very important to me to be interacting with those sort of groups, and I found that validating and essential to the formation of my own identity. In retrospect though, like, I sort of see it a little bit differently, and I don't have quite as much to do with the queer community as I used to, and that's due to a variety of reasons, but not through any kind of, conscious choice. It's just life's kind of got in the way, I guess, or things have changed. But yeah, in retrospect, I look at it slightly differently, and have maybe a different perspective to what I did a couple of years ago. So to answer the question, yes, I feel accepted by my local queer community. I've always found that the queer community is really warm and embracing of sort of a variety of different people, whether it be traditionally LGBTQ people or straight people, and I feel like that environment and that community and that social setting and the events are kind of all-encompassing and really welcoming and awesome. So in that sense, yes, I felt very accepted. Felt like I genuinely belonged there, and for me personally it was a really important community to be a part of, because it made a lot more sense to me and I felt a lot more akin to it than other kind of social groupings and settings that I had been in previously. While I felt accepted though, I don't think, and this is probably the part of it that I've sort of learnt or thought about in retrospect, I don't ever feel that my identity, my gender identity, my sexuality, or me as an individual person was ever really necessarily understood or even visible in that community. Probably no more than it is in any other kind of community or social setting or group of people. And so that the other part of the question is, especially if you're viewed as or read as straight men or women, and I guess in all honesty I don't know how I was perceived in those sort of settings, or how I am perceived in those sort of settings. I'm guessing that I'm probably most often perceived or read as a straight man or a gay man, but certainly I don't think my actual gender identity, the way I feel about myself, or the way I think about my sexuality, I don't think anyone would necessarily pick up on that or understand that or have the foresight unless I had those discussions with them, had those conversations. So I haven't met a lot of other people who are gender non-conforming, so it's not as if I have a tight-knit sort of circle of friends or a broader community of more gender-bendy people. And when I am in the queer community, more often than not, or actually all the time, I am hanging out with sort of groups of lesbians. So yeah, it's curious to me how people would have perceived my presence in those sort of circles and what they would have thought, but I guess generally I would have been read as a straight man or a gay man. Yeah, so I don't think my actual identity was ever visible or appreciated or understood. Yeah, and so that's kind of what I've understood in retrospect. While the queer community is fantastic and embracing and feels like a good fit for me, in reality I don't think that there's really that greater deal of understanding or anything, or acceptance of maybe more acceptance of other identities, but unless you're out there and sort of visibly queer or fit into the L, the G, and the B or the T in a sort of stricter sense, then I think other queer identities kind of go by the wayside a little bit, so which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, definitely feel accepted, not necessarily visible or validated, but I'm also in retrospect thinking I'm not sure how important it is to have those things in that setting. But yeah, it's a really interesting topic and a good thing to think about, and curious to hear what everyone else has to say and what your experiences are. So thanks to QueerPan for asking the question, and I'll see you next week.